Hello, good evening, everyone, or good morning and or good afternoon, wherever you are at. My name is Dr. Annie Lim, and I'm part of the team here at Women in Business World Summit. Now, before we begin our sessions today, I would like to check on our audio. If you could hear us, please raise your hand. You could see in your panel, just raise your hands. I want to make sure that you could hear us. Great. That's great. Okay, let's see. Good. Okay, great. So audio likewise, we're good. So this is our first year doing this event, and we are very, very delighted today to have one of my mentors, DC Cordova. I've known her for 7 years, and it's been an amazing journey with learning from her. Now, before I begin introducing her, I would like to do some housekeeping. Yeah. Um, Also, very briefly, just to let you know, I've been often asked, why did I create this summit? Now, being an entrepreneur for 15 years, I paid my dues, learned my lessons, and realized how important it is to have the right education and the right mentors. And also to create, my intention is to create this platform to provide, the right education to people all over the world, like with the computer, who has computer access or internet access, okay? And ultimately, my goal is to create world peace through business by bringing more collaboration and partnership. Now, in terms of housekeeping, I would like to get some agreements from all of you. Please turn off your phone, stop browsing internet. Let's give DC your full attention. And please take notes and write down whatever notes you have. If you have any question, if on your right side of the panel, you'll see a question box. Please key in all your question, and I'll be asking DC towards the end of the session. And on your panel too, you'll be seeing a chat box. At the end of the session, I'll be posting information about how you can reach out to DC. If you have any question, her contact information will all be there. All right. So without further ado, I'm going to be introducing to you one of the most amazing individuals in this world. I've worked with her like, I don't know, 7 years. I'm very grateful for her work. And I think the work Money in You has been the most instrumental to my life. It's the one that started my entire journey and have supported me to be who I am today. DC, just to let you know about her bio, so DC Cordova is the CEO of Excellerated Business School and Money in You. It's a global organization that has over 100,000 graduates from all over the world, especially in Asia, Pacific, and North American region. The program is taught in English and Chinese, and I'm the promoter in Toronto for the English program. I'm very excited about that. DC's work has touched lives of millions all over the world. Okay, DC has also been knighted as Dame of Honor by the Sovereign Order of the Orthodox Order of St. John, Russian Grand Priori, okay, for her lifelong service to humanity. So DC, I'm going to pass it over to you now.
Unmuted. Thank you so very much. Can you hear me clearly?
Yes, we can hear
you.
You
Absolutely can hear me well, correct? Okay, I'm assuming if I'm not that you're going to let me know. So, hi everyone, my name is DC Cordova, as I was introduced, and I am so excited to be talking to you today. There's many different subjects that I can cover, and I have been doing entrepreneurial programs for over 35 years. And one of the things that I have learned through the years is that human beings are very, very similar around the world. We started with our programs in the United States, and then we went to Australia, New Zealand, and later to Taiwan, Hong Kong, Singapore, Malaysia, and China. And one of the things that was so interesting to me, and this is the subject today, that how my Latin values have really supported me in being successful, is because I noticed that people around the world, when they have very strong values, when they really have when they have certain things that are running them that are very, very important in personal life with your family, it's also very important in business. And sometimes people just want me to talk about money. They want me to talk about business, about income generating activities, which we do all of that, and about global entrepreneurship. But the thing is that it's really important for us to remember that there are generalized principles that run us. There are there are certain laws that you could even call them natural laws that really run all human beings. And it's so interesting because I go to China quite a bit, and I've been going there for over 12 years. And I don't speak Chinese, long story, but I have to tell you, the essence of people, even if I don't understand a word of what they were saying, maybe just a few words, I can actually feel people's essences, and it's interesting how they can feel mine. And I have had a few learning experiences where we brought in people that were not appropriate for the environment. They really were not. They were either just there to hustle people for investments. You know, my network, our network is extremely successful. And it was interesting because I could see that people were kind of moving away from those people. They were not interested in talking to them, or they were not interested in finding an interpreter, even though those people could have taught them a lot. But then I also bring some other people that are completely heart-based, that have great morals, great ability to be able to do business, very, very successful. And people are attracted to them. So I just thought, okay, you're going to have these amazing people, all these masters that are going to be teaching you. But one of the things that I learned a long time ago, it is to work hard and be honest on your journey to financial prosperity. And it was interesting because I was looking at a Napoleon Hill quote the other day, and it actually said, you never ever hear, there is no famous person on the planet that has become famous for cheating their customers, for, stealing, from people, and also damaging the environment. A lot of them may become rich, and you might see some of them on lists, yes, for a little while. But when you really look at their lives, how happy are they? How satisfied are they? How are their marriages? How are their relationships with the people that they work with? How are their relationships with their employees? Can they leave their business? One of the things that occurs after a while is that the younger that you become successful and you become a mega millionaire, somebody's going to have to take over your business. But if you don't have trust, if you don't have the ability to build a team, you're going to have people that are going to be stealing from you. They're going to be taking what you build. They're going to be doing things that are so out of integrity, and there's nothing that you can do about it. So what I'm going to be sharing with you, it also supports in building very loyal teams. And some of the most successful companies, including, you might have heard of Paul Mitchell hair products. Paul Mitchell did our Money and You program back in 1980. And there was Paul Mitchell and Paul DeJoria. They were business partners. And the original Paul Mitchell, and they were both Pauls, so they called the company Paul Mitchell. Well, they didn't realize that, Paul Mitchell, the original one, was the one that had come up with the idea. It's a long story there, but the original Paul Mitchell passed away at 54 years old of cancer. And he had just made all this money, had a little baby boy, and he loses his life. So Paul DeJoria was the guy who continued with the business. And I don't know if you know this, but it's a multi-billion-dollar hair product company. They do a lot of beautiful teaching. They have schools all around. The one value that they have is to have loyalty with hair salons. That was a decision that they made, that they were always only going to sell their products through hair salons. So if you ever see them in any other place besides salons, they are either copies of the product or somebody stole that. I mean, literally. So they became so successful because all the hairdressers were willing to distribute them. In the hair industry, distribution is key. So what I'm going to share some of my values, some of what I learned from my Latina, background, but I also want you to take a look at the values in your industry. What are the things that the people really consider very important? Because you will retain customers. You will retain partners. I mean, people will say, sometimes to my own partners, and I had partners for a long, long time. My Chinese partners right now in China, and my other Chinese partner in Malaysia, we've been together now for 15 years and counting. It doesn't look like we're going to go anywhere soon. And prior to that, my business partnerships have been for a long time, 9 years. And with Robert Kiyosaki of Rich Dad Poor Dad, we were in a business partnership for 9 years. So one of the things that you want to do, and the list is, be on the same page with your business associates, clients, and relationship, and make your life much easier. Now, this is what I mean by this. There isn't any human being on the planet that has the same reality as you do. We are all, it's literally, think of the Terminator. And there is an experience, there is a background that you have, there's all these learning experiences that you have had. All the things have occurred to you from the time that you were very, very young, all the way to the first time that you made money and continue to grow money. And remember, there's 3 stages of money. You're either in the process of making money, or you are in the process of keeping the money that you made, or you are in the process of growing the money that you managed to keep. And all 3 of them require different education, different entrepreneurial skills, but it does not require different values and things that you have learned. You are the sum of the parts of how you were trained by your family, by the time that you were 7 years old. Already those tools, those patterns were already set in your consciousness. Later, if you were given patterns and tools that do not empower you, you have to change them. So what I would recommend to you, and in our Money and You program we have, and I will be talking about this, let me talk about the 2 top things. Having clear rules of the game. And what I mean by that, there is a sheet of paper that you will get at the Money and You, and it's called Rules of the Game. These were the most successful tool that my mentors used in building a real estate company in the 70s, from $25,000 investment to a $60 million company. And this real estate company in the 70s, the #1 tool that the employees and people use were clear rules of the game, which actually helps you to be on the same page with your team, with your clients, with your customers. So in order for you to be on the same page with your team, for instance, that is going to help you build your company, your organization, which, by the way, you're going to be very clear that you're going to build something with a neutral name that you can sell in 5 to 10 years' time. Now, you know, Tony Robbins, I trained when he was 23 years old. Part of the challenge that Tony had for a while was not being able to sell his company or to pass his company along because it was so Tony-centric. So a long time ago with my company, it started getting very DC-centric. I changed that immediately. My brand is Accelerated Business Schools for Entrepreneurs, Money and You. I can do just about anything I want with that brand. So it's very important that you begin to think this way. So in order for you to grow any business, you have to have a clear, really purpose. Our purpose is to uplift humanity's consciousness to business. You have to have a clear mission. Our mission, one of our missions, is to transform educational systems around the world to eradicate poverty and hunger. I also have other missions that, for instance, right now I just created a humanitarian mastermind because I'm at that age. I've been doing this work for over 35 years. I can retire if I want. I can do whatever I want. So I love empowering humanitarians. We're using the same tools for a for-profit organization. The same thing you have to use for humanitarian or nonprofits. Then you have to have clear rules of the game. Now, sometimes people also call a vision. Now, a vision sometimes is something very visual. It's different than a purpose. A purpose is an ongoing thing that is like the wind beneath your wings. And a vision is like a visual of what you would like to create, what your organization is going to create, what your team is going to create. And then, of course, you have a mission which is actually measurable. And then you have clear rules of the game. How are you going to participate together? There's a great process that you can do with your partners and with your friends. And you can do this in relationship. You can do this with your children. And it's a process called Something You Don't Know About Me Is. And this is really interesting to do with potential business partners. And what you share with them are the learning experiences that you've had, the gossip that people could bring to them about you. the things that could be read about you in the internet. By the way, it would be a really good idea for you to go through the internet and check everything about you. I did that. It took me days and days and days. I checked absolutely everything about me, so that if somebody comes to me and they say, what about this, what about that, I can absolutely share with them. Remember, your reputation is the currency of the 21st century. My definition of wealth is not so much how much money you have in the bank, but your access to resources, to money, to capital, to people, to networks, to teachers, to consultants, to networks of people, of your friends. And if you don't have a good reputation, if people, when they check on the net, find all these things about you, you have to, the first people that need to know about this are your partners and the people that you're working with. If you're raising capital, if you're raising funds, if you are building a nonprofit, you want your people to know everything about you. So what you're going to do is you're going to tell them about your habits. What is it that you like? Like, I love everything in writing. I am a crazy person about MOUs, which are really memorandum of understandings. Remember, prior to this life, I was a court reporter. I was an interpreter first, a court reporter, and I was going to grow up to be an attorney. I spent 8 years watching people take themselves to court, mostly in business, because they didn't have clear rules of the game. They weren't on the same page. It's the same thing with your clients and your customers. What is the understanding? If you don't have a product, something like this, that you're just going to show a person and show them all the good things about this particular product, if it's going to be a conception, I'm sorry, excuse me, a concept, a conceptual idea, if it's going to be something that is intangible, you better have some very clear understanding with your clients on what is going to be delivered, and put as much of it in writing. Believe me when I tell you that I don't care how much money you have in the world. If your life is not easy, if your whole life is about going to court, working with attorneys, defending yourself, fighting with people, you're going to live in a life of hell. I watched it in court. I watched people fighting for years and years and years. It didn't matter how rich they were. It didn't matter how much money they had. It didn't matter how beautiful their spouses and their children were, when they were spending most of their wake hours handling challenges. We are about, at Excellerated, at the Money in You program, we are about people being happy, financially independent to whatever it is that financial independence is for them, and for them to contribute to others, because that's also key. That's another generalized principles. Now, I have the other one that says, honor your parents and your teachers, and I'm going to read it out right so that we know what we're talking about here. Honor your parents and your teachers, and relish in the transparency and loyalty that will inspire others and represent you as a better leader, okay? And what I mean by this, by the word relish in the transparency, this means that you are going to be, no matter what people ask you, no matter, you can sleep at night, no matter what people find out about you, and we talked about it a little earlier, your partners, your clients may have already been warned. Look, with the internet, everything has changed. And the worst thing about the internet is that anybody can put anything up there about you. Now, there are ways of remediating that. There are some very interesting things, but there are people that know how that works. So like, for instance, if somebody checks up on me, there isn't any remediation that has been done in there. There isn't. And people that are experts, they know that. And I know that because people that have checked me have told me this. The government of Malaysia checked up on me. Governments, by the way, may not get along when it comes to checking on each other's people. It takes about less than an hour, minute, for one government to send information to another government about you. So depending on what business you're in, and as you become more and more of a global entrepreneur, transparency is key. Now, I grew up in Chile. I was raised there, literally in a little village. I knew everybody, everybody knew me. We knew everybody's business. This is what finding a babysitter looked like in my neighborhood when I was little. my grandmother or my mother stepping out the door, yelling out the door, saying, who is going to take care of Doricita tonight? And somebody would scream, she can stay over here, just like that. That's how babysitting was arranged where I grew up. And you knew that night you were going to go to your neighbor's house and possibly spend the night because the parents were going to, or your grandmother, your mother, and your auntie and uncles and daddy were going to go out to be grown-ups, and you were staying with the neighbor. Same thing. We had kids staying at my house. We didn't have babysitters the way that later when we came to the United States. So I lived in a village, and I was trained deeply, not a little, but pretty much, and I'm going to say this in the most loving manner, the teachers at school were God. That's what was said to me. As far as you're concerned, they are God, because they will make your life good or they will make your life hell. And the way that you're going to live in heaven in school is by honoring your teacher. You're going to honor your teacher. That person is spending their time, their life in teaching little kids like you. They're going to do their best to teach you not only the things that you need to learn, how to read, how to write, geography, arithmetic and algebra, languages, but they're also going to teach you values, and they're going to reinforce the values that we have taught you at home. So a teacher for me, I could tell you stories about things that some of my teachers have done that have gotten away with because of this teaching of mine, but I have to tell you, it always works, because when it comes to a teacher, a lao tzu, as we say, in China. The other thing is your parents, and there are some beautiful spiritual teachers there, but there was a wonderful guru, Indian guru, that has now left this world. His name was Sai Baba, and I love Sai Baba. I love many different teachers, and I'm a Christian by heart. Christ is someone that I grew up with in my family, so ingrained in this. Grew up a Catholic, and DC stands for Devout Catholic. That's a little joke. It actually stands for Denise del Carmen Cordova Michelle. That's my Chilean name. But I really had, I grew up in a Catholic environment. And it was very important, and Sai Baba said this, if you want to live heaven on earth, love your parents unconditionally. Now, that seems like a very simple statement. And for some people, that is the easiest thing in the whole world. But as many of us know, there are many children and many people that haven't had the ideal parent or haven't had any parents along. So even a parent figure here, for those of you that grew up in homes or, you were foster children and or something else. I was raised by my grandmother, but of course my mother came home every night, and I had a daddy next door that was my surrogate father. So I had a full family, thank you God. So, but one of the things that occur is that when Sai Baba says, if you want to live heaven on earth, if you want to be a happy person, honor your parents, love your parents unconditionally. And that took me a little while for me to understand, and it was so fascinating. Because my mother, I have the most wonderful mother. She's still alive. She's 88 years old. And I'm so grateful that I talk to her almost daily. And I remember up until I was 27 years old, my mother and I did not have the best relationship. There were quite a few things that occurred between us. But I did a program called EST. And in EST, I learned that if you really want to be a happy person, stop making your parents wrong. And Landmark Education continues to teach that. And I decided to do a live experiment, a social experiment, and that was to go ahead and honor my mother, and I would never make her wrong again. It took a few years. I am not going to lie to you. It took a few years, but no matter what she said, she was right. And we have had such a wonderful relationship. And now, I'm in my early 60s. She is 88. One of the greatest sense of happiness is having my mother be my best friend and being able to just talk to her. And she loves my sister and I so much. And of course, I was a role model for my sister. So my sister copied this because she's 14 years younger than I am. And it has been one of the greatest sense of happiness for me. So that, see, this is what you need to understand. Your life is made up of moment to moment to moment to moment. That you're going to make a lot of money, great. That you're going to have a fantastic business, great. That you're going to lose everything, horrible. It might happen. It happens to a lot of entrepreneurs. It does. For some reason, it seems to be part of it, whether it is the economy, your product or service went obsolete, it doesn't matter. But there's something so powerful when you are connected to your own self, and the manifestation of it is the honoring of your teachers, of your parents. And what is so interesting, then you begin to honor your business partners, your spouses, and your children. Your children don't belong to you. You had your children. Try to control kids. You will be able to up until a certain age. But one of the greatest relationships that I see between parents and young people and families that stay together and their kids don't go off to do drugs and get separated and run away from home and got horrendous stories, is when people honor their children as we honor our family. And when your children see you honoring your parents, your teachers, your business partners, they will learn honoring, because children and young people and your business partners learn from watching you. So that takes us, of course, to the last part of the honoring piece and what I learned having grown up being a Latina, and that is the honoring of Mother Earth. We only have one planet, and it is called Spaceship Earth, as Buckminster Fuller called it, one of our mentors. What is so interesting about Buckminster Fuller is that he had us reminded us that we are in a little spaceship going 265 miles per hour, through the going around the sun. And then we have the moon going around us. And the only reason why the moon doesn't fall into us and we don't fall into the sun is this thing called precession, a generalized principle, which is the scientific explanation for ripple effects. So when you're going to take an action, a drastic action, just remember to say, what are going to be the ripple effects? What are going to be the precessional effects of this action? So it takes us to our Gaia, Mother Earth, the planet. I don't have to tell you, you probably see the news. There was a big earthquake in Japan, nuclear waste, went into the oceans, and it has already been found in the coastline of California. I live in San Diego, so we keep an eye on that. And of course, and then cars and junk and stuff from all the way from Japan in the coast of Alaska. One world, one earth. And so we all know the news on what is happening to that town in America that has dirty water. And this is so very sad. Nothing had been checked since 1992. These people have been getting away with murder, with not having poisonous things were held in these tanks, and they haven't been checked since 1992. Now this whole little town of 300,000 people have no clean water. Now just imagine that. I mean, I can't even imagine that. I have a thing about water anyway. So it's beginning to really show up all over the place. So what you need to understand is that ethics and your willingness to not hurt the environment is so key. And right now, as I was watching a funny show last night, and it had nothing to do with social entrepreneurship. It had nothing to do with social justice, nothing to do with clean environment. And it came up about Monsanto, that this huge company that is creating a lot of havoc. So people are not stupid. Young people are amazingly socially responsible. There's a whole new generation. I know a bunch of young people in the 20s and 30s that are ethical investors in Wall Street, and they are not okay with investing in companies that are hurting the environment. They won't recommend mutual funds that promote alcohol, armaments, cigarettes, and other things that they consider to be hurtful to people. So social responsibility is at every level, and it affects every aspect of humanity. And I was just talking to a young man, very successful entrepreneur, and he was telling me that he is now creating a program called Inhuman, and it's about being human and about how, and he's very young and can make money at anything. He's mega, mega successful. And one of the things that he realized that they were part of the industry where they were teaching people how to be unethical, how to rip people off, and how to not do things in a manner that is really exemplary. So I realized that, thank God, and I'm so grateful that I grew up in Chile. What a beautiful country. By the way, right now it's a great place to go do business. It is one of South America's, including Mexico, Central America and Mexico, the most prosperous and successful country in all of Latin America. For us, education is key. Chile has the only entrepreneurial university. It's been in business for over 65 years in Viña del Mar. And in Chile, everyone takes it upon themselves to train people how to read and write. So we have one of the highest literacy rate on the planet. I believe that, I can't remember the name of the other Latin country, is the highest. No, everybody knows how to read and write, which is key in eradicating poverty and hunger. So of all the things that I could have taught you, and you can go to moneyandyou.com/free gift, and you can download the business success model, great piece. You can go to moneyandyou.com and you can download the 4-session business makeover, 4 hours of free education. And you can come hang out with us and go into our different endeavors and platforms. Annie Lim and her team will let you know about it. So there's plenty of things that you can learn. But just like a house, just like a building, you have to have a very, very strong foundation. Very, very strong. And I realize now, where I am now going into the most magnificent years of my life, I have all the energy. I have the energy of a 25-year-old. I have a beautiful relationship. I have a wonderful family and organization. I get to really enjoy life. But what was the foundation of that? And ultimately, it was my Latina values, the things that I've been sharing with you. Those are the wind beneath your wings. And I'm telling you right now that when my old partner, Robert Kiyosaki, who teaches about, from Rich Dad, Poor Dad, if you really start asking him questions, he will tell you about the values that he learned about being a Marine, the values that he learned in Money and You, and teaching it for 9 years, and teaching our business school for entrepreneurs, the values that we learned from Buckminster Fuller. And ultimately, you don't have to go too far. You can look at the values that you learn from your school, from your beloveds, and from your family. And if there were certain things that they taught you that are not empowering, release them, let them go, and just move on, and life will work for you. So of all the things that we could start this beautiful, beautiful summit, and thank you so much, Annie and the team, for putting this on, I had to really go back home, go into my heart, and just really share what was so important. Aloha, and I'm open to answering any questions.
Well, thank you, DC, so much. I'm so mesmerized whenever you speak. And just being reminded of all the principles that I've learned from Money New, and especially Buckminster Fuller's adding value, and that's all what life's about. And also, yeah, we're on the same planet, spaceship Mother Earth. Now, there are a couple of questions, so I'm going to pick this one. There's one question, which is, how do you know your business partner shares the same value
Unmuted.
with you?
That
Muted.
you actually talk about them. You have, when you're creating your rules of the game, and if you attend Money and You will see, you will learn quite a bit about creating rules of the game. You even get a handout that with rules, but you actually talk to them. You say, what are the things, what are your top 5 values? In mine, for instance, are freedom. I love freedom, and health, even though that doesn't quite sound like a value, but it is, and of course, compassion, integrity, and so what are the things that run you? What are the things? You talk about it. And when you talk about something I don't want you to know about me, you can share with your partners what happened that created that situation, and you can then share your side of the story and what you learned from it. Don't go into a lot of lame blame, because you have to take responsibility for those learning experiences that you may have had. What happened? What occurred? And that's really important.
Well, thank you, DC. Another question is, how do you create the rules of the game?
The rules of the game, for instance, the first one in Money and You is like be supportive of the team's goals, purposes, and values. It's not exactly worded like that, but that's the number one. So you have to be willing to support your partners. Number two is speak with good purpose. What that means is that you're not going to gossip. Number three has subcategories, and it has to do with communication, that if there's going to be a broken agreement, for you to communicate as soon as you can, or if you did break an agreement, to go ahead and clean it up as fast as you can. Another one is to put things in writing. Another one, and Kiyosaki and I, because I was in the legal system, I put this in with Robert, and the one was keep the other person innocent, consider the other person innocent until proven guilty. Obviously, that comes from the legal system. And that is, you don't accuse your partners, you don't accuse your child, you ask questions. You say, I heard that you did this and that, or you said this and that. Can you explain it to me? And they'll say, oh my God, that's not really what I said, but it could have sounded like that. So what happens is that you begin to create rules by which you're going to play by. How do you participate together? To possibly not make each other wrong if you have different realities. Your partners and you will have different realities. There's nobody on the planet that has the same reality that you do, so communication is key.
Thank you, DC. I think we're going to just take one more question, yeah, because of time.
Okay.
So the question is, how interesting the foundational values and rules transparency, but social values can affect the performance of good interest ethical concern that is done in this case. Another group of people looking or mission is resize. Not sure. I guess I wasn't clear.
Okay, so I'm not understanding completely the question. Can you clarify it for me? Make it simple?
Yes, I'm going to do that. So I guess maybe she probably wants to know more about when you talk about the rules of transparency. Maybe more clarity on that.
Oh, okay. There are no rules to transparency. Transparency, it stands on its own. Transparency is when you're able to just speak what is really happening to you, what is really happening to your condition, to the condition of your company, the condition of the business, how you're doing, not exaggerating and not having 3 sets of books. You have 1 set of books. If you have more than 1 set of books, you're going to go to jail. You really need to know this. I was in court for a long time. It's not acceptable. You have to report to the IRS here in America and to whatever government agency. They will find out. Right now, maybe you could have gotten away with that in an old cash society 60 years ago. That still happens in China. I know that in China there's 3 sets of books, the one for the person, the other one that you share, and then the other one for the government. Let me tell you, that's changing quickly in China. And one of the things that you need to understand is that you need to be transparent so that there's nothing that you have to defend or protect. There is no, if you do something stupid, confess as soon as you can to your partners. If there's something, if you took even $100 that was sitting in petty cash because you needed to go buy a new belt or something, and just say, I borrow that, I put it back, but I will never do that again, because that's petty cash for the company. It is even the tiniest things. Transparency is when you don't exaggerate. You don't need to exaggerate. Results speak for themselves. Transparency is like being honest. If you are not a faithful person and you're going to have lots of boyfriends and girlfriends, let your partner know. Just let them know. Just say, I've never been able to be faithful. I want to be faithful to you, but the chances are that I'm not going to be. Are you okay with that? And they may or may not be okay. But there are many couples that have open relationships, a lot more than you think. But don't lie to your partners. This is key. You know, Kiyosaki used to say this, and I agree with him. If a guy cheats on his wife, he's going to cheat on you. It's like, are you kidding? You stand in front of the altar with someone? Of course they're going to cheat with you on money. Once a person starts cheating in any area of their lives, they're going to cheat in others. There is no stopping. So it's a constant process of being transparent to yourself, where you begin to admit to yourself those weaknesses, and you can share those. That's transparency, and people will trust you so much more.
Well, thank you, DC. It's just so juicy, the session, and we have quite a few more questions. But because due to time, so I'm going to invite everybody to go to our Facebook. So our Facebook is facebook.com// Women in Business World Summit. Post your questions there, and there will be, DC will come on and answer some of the questions. Please share what you have learned today as well, and on our Facebook page. In addition, we'll also be sending out a recording for one recording a week for all the session that's being run. So watch out for that email. Right now, if you look at your chat box, I've also posted DC's website, so that's how you can reach her, and also the link to the free gift that DC is offering to everybody. We will be sending out information about how can you get access to the recording of all these sessions for the entire summit. Watch out for the email as well, and we'll really appreciate it if you could share the pre-summit with all your friends, family, and your network. So once again, DC, it's been such a great session. I'm so mesmerized. I can stay with you for days just learning from you, and I'm so glad that I have that privilege and have that access to you. So once again, thank you everyone for joining us. DC, there's anything else you want to say before we end the session?
Just thank you so much for coming along, passing the word. Remember, this is about educating as many people as possible, and we're going to make this a better world. So help me eradicate poverty and hunger so every human being on the planet can have this lifestyle that you have. Thank you. Aloha.
Thank you, everyone. And as we say here in Women in Business World Summit, it's about creating peace through business. When you educate a woman, you educate a generation. Have a great day, everybody. Good night. Bye-bye.